on the News Channel 5 network. This is OpenLine.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to OpenLine. Good show tonight. Chance for you to call in with maybe your own personal story. We're talking elder law, caring for a loved one who may be aging, planning for that. What are some of the steps you should take? What are some of the steps we should all take? And as it is, we're coming up on Veterans Day. We're going to be taking a special focus tonight on veterans issues. And happy to have with us two people. We normally just have one, but happy to have with us two people. We have Barbara Boone McGinnis. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
And Chris Johnson, both attorneys with Takis McGinnis. Thank you for being here,
Thank
Chris.
You.
A new partner there at Takis McGinnis, so congratulations. And you really focus on the veterans side of things, is that right?
I do. I'm a VA accredited attorney, and we certainly specialize in veterans issues. I'm a retired Marine, and so taking care of veterans is a passion.
Wow, retired Marine.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. We're going to talk about that. I want to define elder law.
What is elder law?
And you're always very good at that.
Yeah.
So how would you define it?
Elder law is one of the few specialties of law that's actually defined by the age group that we serve. So yes, we serve elderly people or older adults, but we specifically focus on estate planning, and from estate planning to care planning needs, helping families navigate the care system. It's not easy, and the payment system for care is even harder to understand. So that's kind of our focus: older adults, estate planning, with a unique emphasis on care planning needs.
So care planning needs, how would you define that? Is that nursing home or?
Well, it's chronic care wherever the setting might be. So it certainly may be at home. It might be throughout the continuum of care, from assisted living, memory care, yes, and nursing home care.
And how does the veterans side of this play into that? I guess if you are a veteran or your spouse was a veteran, there's some things out there that can really benefit you, right?
There are a great deal, absolutely. There are a great deal of resources that can benefit you, starting with the Veterans Administration. Everyone thinks of it as just the VA, this large animal, and it is. It's the second largest government bureaucracy that we have after the Department of Defense. But it's split into three. The two that people are most familiar with are the Veterans Health Administration, which is all the hospitals and all the medical care facilities that are out there, and then the Veterans Benefits Administration, things like the GI Bill, service-connected, and so what they have is they have compensation, service-connected compensation, and they have a non-service-connected pension for those that have catastrophic medical costs and are over the age of 65 or totally disabled. And most veterans don't know about these resources, and so part of it is just getting the knowledge out there and getting the word to those veterans, say these are part of your service. When you served and served honorably, you've earned these, and that you should take advantage of it if you qualify.
What would be, all right, what's a situation that's fairly common? Someone comes into your office, you're going to ask, have they served, right? Have they served their country? And what's a situation where they're leaving, let's say, money on the table or some benefit on the table? What's a common one that maybe they didn't know or a spouse didn't know? What's common?
I think the real common one is mom and dad are looking at moving into an assisted living facility. They're finally getting to the point where they need assistance with activities of daily living, and they've saved well, but they're modest means, and so their income becomes instantly upside down. So let's say they have maybe $1,500 in Social Security from one spouse and maybe $1,000 from the other, and that's really the income that they have coming in each month. And they move into an assisted living facility that can be $4,000, $4,500 each month, and they're instantly upside down, and there's a large draw. And if they are under a resource limit that they have, and your house is an excludable asset so long as it's on an acreage under 2 acres, although there are even some exceptions for that, then what happens is the VA looks at that and says we can come in and augment that, and the amount that they'll augment can be up to $2,230 a month, which really makes sense because in that common approach, what that'll do is that takes them right back up to not being upside down anymore. And that has an instant impact. You have families who come in and think, this is going to wipe us. We're going to go into this facility. It's an unlimited amount of time. We don't know when this payment will end. And being upside down, they see the nest egg going to zero. And it's a frightening thing for most families.
And that is something that impacts so many people. We talk on here all the time about the cost of nursing home care or the cost
Right.
of an assisted living facility. And it would be easy to get upside down.
Yeah.
And that benefit that you're discussing, does it follow, let's say the husband served and has passed away and it's a spouse who's older, does it follow?
It does. It's called the surviving spouse pension, and it will. There are stipulations on it, and it's going to be a lower dollar amount. So if you have, they will do the dollar amount based upon your situation. So a single veteran gets one, a married veteran will get a different one, a veteran married to another veteran will even be in a different category, and then you have the surviving spouse.
Wow, okay. And that is a common thing, right? That people get upside down, and that's what
Right.
that's what you're trying to help with.
And I think there's as many myths and misunderstandings about veterans benefits as they are about TennCare benefits. People just assume that they were a veteran, and so when daddy needs care, we can drive up to the Veterans Administration and they're going to take him in with open arms and take care of him. That's not true. And the other thing is they don't realize the flip side of that is there may be opportunities that they're going to get some help with paying for care at home.
That's right.
So it's really ideal for helping folks pay for care to extend their independence and being able to live at home and not have to go into a nursing home.
How much of it is, do you think, people don't know, or people are just overwhelmed? I mean, you said it's the second largest bureaucracy, and I can't imagine trying to navigate that. Just, I don't know if you call a number and say, hey, I mean, so how much is it, do people are just overwhelmed?
Yeah, I think it's a healthy combination of the two, and the feeling of being overwhelmed, that is throughout this process with elder law, whether it's TennCare, whether it's VA, whether it's just moving into a facility and choosing the right facility. This is the one time that those parents they're going to go on that journey of the aging process and looking at what's the right facility, what are my care needs, and are they being met? And when you do something just once in life, by definition, you're not an expert in it, and so it can be a frightening experience. And with the VA especially, that's why they have an accreditation process for attorneys and agents, so that they know the people who are helping them with the process of dealing with the VA and navigating through what can only be described as a Byzantine process, knows what they're doing, knows where the resources are. And that, the biggest conception is, I probably don't qualify, or I've been told I don't qualify. And that is very difficult to hear. I've lost track of the number of people who come in and say, well, I was told I didn't qualify. And we look at their status and it just wasn't true because it wasn't analyzed appropriately.
Mm-hmm. And that's where you all can step in.
Or it's no longer true because of the asset limit
has been raised.
It's been raised now.
It's been raised significantly. It used to be a function of what your age was, and oddly enough, the older you were, the lower your resource limit became, because it was projected out to cover your life expectancy. And as your life expectancy got shorter, they would say, well, you don't need as much cash on hand, as much reserves. But now what they did, which I think everyone appreciated, is they came up with kind of a finite number. And right now it's at $127,000, and that is your resource limit. And that is a bright line rule that everyone can measure against, and I think it has simplified the process. And so the VA took some real proactive and I think some very positive steps in trying to provide some clarity along the way when they updated the rules in October of last year.
$127,000 for what? You can't have assets beyond that?
Assets, accounts, bank accounts, stocks, bonds, cash value of life insurance policies, plus and then what they ask you to do is add your IVAP. And so we'll get a little technical here, but your IVAP is a calculation. It's called your income for VA purposes. It's your gross income, and then what they do is they subtract out your unreimbursed medical expenses. And so they tack on that amount to your resource limit, because that's kind of what it looks like, what your projection is. And they say, okay, are you under the $127,000 number? But that IVAP becomes very important because that's what they come up with your monthly pension amount. They look at that, and if your IVAP is 0 or a negative number, that proverbial upside down scenario, that is where you get the max amount of the pension. But they can actually provide you less than that because the idea is simply to provide a floor. And that's where you can see, just describing it right now, it gets very technical, and people throw up their arms very shortly because it's difficult.
And that $127,000 figure, I'm interested in that. That does not include your home, right?
It does not.
So that's not part of that figure.
That's correct.
All right, that's interesting. And Barbara, what would you say as far as the number of people just coming through your doors, walking through the doors? Are they people that are concerned about a loved one, maybe a parent, mom and dad, or is it they themselves are coming through and they're planning for their own future?
What's kind of interesting, we do, we sort of measure everything at Take Us McGinnis by some sort of continuum, and we even have a continuum of services that we provide. So Chris works a lot with estate planning and folks that are interested in asset protection. So those are the folks that are interested in planning for themselves for the most part, where I work more with crisis management people, and they're often coming in planning for a loved one, parent, grandparent, or a spouse that's coming in, and they're at a different point in life where they're really crisis managing healthcare and the concerns about paying for healthcare.
So both. And so that's what we encourage. We encourage people to call in. If you have a situation yourself that you personally are concerned about, thinking about, whatever, or if there's a loved one that you are caring for. We have a couple calls. Let's go to the phones here. Let's go to Marcus. Hello, Marcus. What's on your mind?
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you guys doing, to you and your panel? I just wanted to say that I've had problems as far as caregivers, a couple of caregivers who came to take care of my parents while they were in-house, at our house, but we would take care of them ourselves pretty much, and the caregivers would come, an agency would come usually 3 times a week, and there was a situation where I filed a complaint on one of them. I thought that her tactics were kind of rough as far as dealing with my parents. Adult Protective Services came out, and instead of them following up, trying to see what was going on with them, they tried to turn on us as a family as if we were the ones that had been accused of something. And I wanted to know, have you ever experienced as attorneys an overzealous Adult Protective Services agent or representative? We had the same person who bypassed Vanderbilt security as far as us having a code for only family members to know so they could visit our mother. They some kind of way figured out a way to find out where my mother was in the Poly Olive ward, and she would die like 2 weeks later. She was at her worst. So basically harassing her.
Wow.
To a point to where I'm like, to have this allowed, to have somebody have that much power to do what they did, which was total harassment, to add on to what we already were dealing with a parent who was declining in health.
All right, well, let's talk about that. Yeah.
And I'll hang up and listen.
Well, Marcus, I appreciate the call. So what do you think about what he's describing there?
Well, it certainly sounds frustrating for him, but no, my experience has not been to have an overzealous adult protective person. I'm not saying that was not the case that his family experienced. Most of the time, it's almost the opposite that we hear, is that people don't get enough investigation out of Adult Protective Services because there's not enough of them. You know, typical for government workers, there's not enough staff and enough time to investigate what needs to be investigated. I'm sorry his family went through that, though.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Any other experience, Chris?
My experiences with them have been positive as well. It very much sounds like an outlier situation, and it's tough because those government agencies have to strike a very delicate balance. They have to get the job done. They have to do an appropriate investigation while at the same token respecting everyone's privacy and respecting everyone's rights. It's not an easy thing to do, but it's a very vulnerable segment of our society, and it is a very difficult job to do, especially with limited resources.
Okay, all right, we're going to take a break. David, Taylor, Shayna, others, hold on the line.
Yeah.
If you want to call in with a question or to share your situation, there's the number, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. Take a break. Be back right after this.